Today, we're exposing the real reason Americans do not travel abroad. Shalom, it's No Limit Eddie, a 24-year-old American who's been traveling the world full time for the last 3 years. And I've documented every moment of my journey here on this YouTube channel. If that sounds interesting to you, drop a like on today's video so YouTube recommends you more content you'll love. All right, let's get into it.
Love to be like, oh, but Americans aren't well traveled. They can't point out where Switzerland is on a map.
Brit in America here, and I now know why Americans aren't well travelled. Trust me, they are well travelled, but there's a reason why. I've spent many months in America, like actively trying to get to as many states as possible in America, and I haven't even scratched the surface. Americans don't need to venture outside America because America is that big. Americans go on vacation in America. I'm in the UK back home. It can take me 45 minutes to get to France, Germany, right? Amsterdam. These are whole different countries across water. 45 minutes. I just don't think Europeans are clued up on how big America really is. Like, Americans don't need to venture out. You'll be surprised that a lot of Americans will not have passports. They don't need them. Every single state in America is like its own country. Literally like its own country. Isn't like the UK where things are similar. In America, you go to a different state, it's like a whole different world. So now I get it why Americans aren't well travelled. Americans are well travelled, just in their own country. Their country is massive, mate. I don't think people really understand the scale and the size of America. It is insane.
Now, that video was very interesting. There's a lot that I agree with him on and some things that I disagree with him on, and we'll kind of talk about it in today's video. Let's start off with the things that I disagree, because that's always entertaining, right? I think one big reason that was not mentioned in this video was the fact that many Americans do not travel internationally, do not travel abroad, simply because they cannot afford it. There's so many people who want to travel abroad, who want to travel internationally, but the way that America, in a lot of ways, is set up for people, you stay in a rat race, okay? To where if you were to take time off, right, and especially if it's unpaid time off, because we don't get as much holiday leave as most other countries in the world. I think there's a statistic that Americans work more than any other developed nation, right? So we work more than Canadians, the UK, New Zealand. We work more than all those people on a basis of, I think, hours per week. So the average hours per week is significantly higher for Americans than any other developed country in the world. And so we don't really have the same leisure and time off and incentives that you get in these other countries. And so we really can't afford to miss work, because that will then put us behind when most people are already behind. Right, they're working this month to pay the next month's bills, and the next month to pay the next month's bill, and they're just in this cycle where they never have enough wiggle room and never enough freedom to actually break free. Okay, and it is possible to do that. If you are like a scrappy person, you can definitely in America put yourself in a position where you don't have to scramble as much, right? But for the majority of people, they don't have the self-belief, self-confidence, and number two, the skill sets to do such a thing, right? And so my whole business in reality is based around helping people who want to travel abroad or want to move abroad, but who just don't understand how they're going to make it work financially, right? Like, okay, well, how could I survive and live and, travel to different places consistently and constantly without working a 9-to-5 job, right? People come to me, hundreds of people have come to me to help them solve that problem. And so I do think most Americans do want to travel abroad, but it's a big component of it is the financial side of things, right? Now, the second thing that I disagree with in this video that I don't think he really maybe mentioned or thought about is a culture around travel in America. There is a lot of people who have aspirations, who watch travel videos all day long of Jamaica, the Bahamas, Bali, the Maldives, Dubai. They watch all of these different travel videos all day long, but they're definitely afraid to get on that plane and just go. Okay, most of the stuff that we're taught in America is meant to boost our head up about our country, right? American exceptionalism. We are the greatest country in the world. Everybody else besides the UK is low down. They're not winning. They're impoverished. They're starving. Ebola. It's just we're indoctrinated with, like, if it's not America or its little brother, as we kind of think of Britain, is no good, is no bueno, right? Canada got some respect too, but overall, it's like, why would I leave America when America has everything? His same sentiment is how most Americans feel, like Americans has everything. And so what can happen sometimes is when someone says, yo, I want to go to Jamaica, they talk about it with their cousin, with their uncle, with auntie, someone who doesn't have a passport themselves, someone who has never been outside the country, and then that person will discourage. And so we all hear such foolishness and such nonsense whenever we bring up the idea of moving out the country or living out the country or visiting another country. And a lot of times, even if they may want to do it, they're fearful. Okay, they're nervous, they're scared. Am I going to get food poisoning? Is this going to happen to me? Is that going to happen to me? We're always a little bit more cautious because we're not taught to really travel internationally. I think America is the most prosperous nation that ever existed throughout human history. That's a proven fact. 1/3 of Americans have a passport, right? And so a very small selection of people have ever really ventured outside of the U.S. or outside of the States, and a big portion of that is fear, right? Because you're fearing the unknown. Now, let's talk about the things that I do agree with. But before I do, I know I mentioned my business earlier, but here's a little bit more. By the way, it's Eddie here. It's super loud. I'm in an airport right now, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick message. For those of you guys who are like, okay, I'm in an airport, like I said. How do you travel? How do you do the things that you're doing without ever talking about going to work, without ever talking about having to clock in or clock out for your job or have to ask for time off? Well, I created a free training. It's 10 minutes long, and it's in the description of my video. If you always wanted to know how to make money online, well, now is a really good time to learn. Click the link in my description and put your name and email in and watch the free training. Now, I agree. America is a huge, huge, huge country. When I think about America, there's nothing that you need that you can't get there. And what I mean by that is, if you want snow, there's many places where it snows. If you want hot heat, there's many places where it's heat. If you want forestry, there's a lot of places where there's forestry. If you want humidity, there's a lot of places where there's humidity. If you want dry heat, there's places where there's dry heat. You want oceans, places where there's ocean. You want lakes, places where there's lakes. America, in reality, does have such an amazing and vast topography that it is underestimated how beautiful most of that country is. All kind of a mixture of the United States, right? And so much of the United States is not even occupied, right? So the whole overpopulation thing is really a myth, right? I think they proved that every human being on Earth can fit inside of the first floor of New York City, okay? And so there's so much undeveloped land, everything like that in the United States. But yeah, I do believe that the topography is different, the weather is different, the atmosphere is different, and then it's so big, like he said, to where we have different foods, okay? You got the Southern soul food, you got the Kansas City barbecue, you go up to New York and you got the delis and stuff like that. You slide out to where I am in Cali, and then we do a lot of burgers, and then we got the Cali Mex fusion, because a lot of immigrants coming over and bringing in tacos and bringing in burritos and bringing all this. So there is literally multiple different regions of America where you can experience a different culture. We have different accents, right? Depending on a part of the country you're from. If you're from New York, you're going to talk a certain way. If you're from the West Coast, you're going to talk a certain way. If you're from the South, you're going to talk a certain way. And so it is huge, and it is a lot of topography. You can really have a ball of a time just traveling around the U.S., right? In itself, it's very vast. Now, the problem, right, that we kind of run into with that is that even though it's very different, the overall culture permeates the whole country. And so for me, when I thought about traveling as a youth, I never thought about getting on a plane and leaving the country of America. My idea was I would love to just be rich, get an RV, put my family inside, and just drive around the country hitting the best food spots. Right, I used to watch Food Network all the time, so I would have lists of okay, I want to go eat this, I want to eat that, and that was my definition of traveling. And so the culture, in a lot of ways, permeates all of the United States, and that is which you will miss if you only travel in the States, right? Once you move abroad, there's a different culture, there's a different energy, there's different vibration of people that you run across and things like that, right? There's really not too many places in the States that have, let's say, the laid-back, chill, Hakuna Matata kind of sitting under a coconut tree in the middle of the day as a grown man vibe that a place like Tanzania had, right? There's not as many places on Earth where people are as, not on Earth, in the States, to where you have the culture, right, that you would get outside the United States. And so that's just always been my belief set and my experience. And I believe that traveling outside of the States gives you a new perspective, right, on what's normal, what's not normal, right? There's so many things that we think are normal that once we kind of experience another person's country, once we kind of experience how we can be treated in a different place, we're like, whoa, okay, maybe this is not normal, right? And I think that's a benefit that you would lack if you only travel within the States. So while I do agree with them, America is huge, very, very big in comparison to a lot of different countries. Like I said as well, with that being said, most people, they don't just want different sceneries though, they want a different quality of life. And to get a certain quality of life, it is harder in the United States, and it is easier if you go somewhere else where that quality of life is much more easily attained through the arbitrage of the US dollar, right? So when you go to a place where the US dollar just has more buying power, more purchasing power, you can immediately up the quality of your life. It instantly up, what you're able to afford and not afford, and it changes the game quite substantially in a relatively quick fashion. So with that said, guys, let me know what you think. Why don't many Americans travel? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to leave a like on it as well. See you guys in the next one. Y'all willing. Shalom.